Welcome. In this video lecture, we are looking at the book Think Python, How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. We're looking at the second edition. The authors are Alan, Jeffrey, and Chris. I'm going to be doing video lectures. My name is Arthur Solomon. I'm going to be working with you throughout these videos. Thank you. Exercise 7.2. So we're going to be using a built-in function eval to evaluate user input. So we're going to be writing a function called eval loop that will iteratively prompt the user, take the resulting input and evaluate it using eval, and then print the results. It should continue until the user has entered done, and then return the value of the last expression it evaluated. So let's jump into our machine and let's see what we can do. Alright, I will open up my PyScripter. Alright, so this is going to be fairly simple. It's a simple evaluation of a user input. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to be defining a loop. We're calling it eval loop. We will be doing a while loop. So while true, we will have user input, and we will have that set to, I prefer to be a little bit more specific. So input, that way it will prompt them with this command, and when they enter done, it will quit. Alright, so from here I will do an if statement. So if the user input is set to done, then what do? We need to print first, because we're going to be doing our evaluation. So print, we will be doing our evaluation. I'm just going to be using a user variable, user var, and essentially we're taking the user input and we're looking at input. If done is done, if done is entered, it will print our variable, and we will do a break. Otherwise, we will print our eval for user input. So because the last line said we wanted to print the last variable, or the last expression, we will do user var, and we'll set that to user input. So let's see if that loop will run. So I will do 1 first. Nope. 2. Nope. I'll do done. And it ends. I typed done, and it printed my last expression. So our evaluation can be that simple. So I'm actually going to make a new module. I want to spice this up just a little bit. Alright, so before I spice it up, let's do it again. So what happens if I do done? Capital D. It didn't like that. What if I do a letter? Didn't like that. So that's one of the issues, is it's only allowing the string value of a variable. It's only allowing the string value done. Everything else has to be just specific numbers. So that's not quite what we're looking for. Alright, so let's modify the input. We want to save this as a string. Capital D. See, that's the number that's working, but our text is not. So even though we have it as a user, the user input is set to a string, it's not quite saving it as a string. So the nice thing is we're actually not even going to worry about user input taking random strings and evaluating them. And that's because the evaluation of more complex expressions or general purpose expressions is way outside the scope of our beginner. So don't worry about setting this to a string and trying to evaluate it. It won't work. So with that said, we want to go ahead and spice this up just a little bit more user-friendly. Alright, so I added in some comments. So that's one thing that we can do. Makes this a little bit easier. However, I mean, I may want to print something else so that I can get some actual feedback. Because if I run this, 1, 2, let's say I'll do done. Like, that's it. Like, we don't get anything else. So it might be useful for us to add some additional output. Alright, so I added in a new print line. Basically, I added in a print the user last input was, and then I put a you've entered done, the program is now exiting. So let's see what that looks like. So if I do 1 or 2, I don't get anything. If the second I type done, I have the variable that I entered, but then I also get the last user input was, and I also now have some type of output saying that we're exiting the program. Makes it a little bit easier to kind of see what's going on. So I want to not quite done yet. Like, what happens if I do capital D? Well, because of the string not being defined, it doesn't let us. So I want to go ahead, I want to copy these. Done, lowercase, done, capital case. Both of these, when set to true, will exit the program. So let's see if that works. Done. See, it still doesn't like the it because this last line happens at the end. So I'm actually gonna do it at the very beginning. And let's see what happens. So 1, 2, done. it does not like the user input done. So I'm just going to go ahead and ignore it. We will do completely get rid of it. And there we go. Sometimes when you're trying to do more, it doesn't always work out. So the big thing here is understand the scope. The assignment was to take a variable, an input, and to evaluate it. Sometimes adding a little bit more, like things that might be useful for the core function, would be nice. Like this, the prompts make it a little bit more user-friendly. But adding additional makes it a lot harder sometimes. So we have met the completion requirement for exercise 7.2. We wrote a function called eval loop, and it does contain a prompt so that when the user types done, all lowercase, it will exit and it will print the last expression that was evaluated. So we have met it, and we spiced it up just a little bit, so that completes this exercise. Any questions, concerns, reach out. That concludes this chapter. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out and leave me a comment or a question. I'll try to get those answered as quickly as I can. Again, thank you, and I look forward to working with you in later modules.